All right. Good day, everyone. I'm honored to present in front of you, distinguished experts of oncology, clinicians, scientists, advocates of cancer patients, and families. First, I'd like to disclose that I'm very nervous. However, I'll try my best to inspire my fellow teens and young adults to be more inquisitive about cancer and to engage with activities promoting cancer awareness. I also like to humbly share additional information for the science of preventing and treating cancer from my generation's perspective. As we know, cancer in adolescents and young adults is a devastating disease. According to the WHO, in 2026, it is estimated that around 400,000 children from 0 to 19 years old would develop cancer. And in the United States, cancer is one of the top 4 causes of mortality in adolescents. When there is a delay in recognizing signs and symptoms of cancer, there is a delay in diagnosis, which can be life-threatening. Unfortunately, as reported by Liu et al. In 2023, less than 1/3 of the entire population is confident in recognizing the signs and symptoms of cancer. And in the 2020 report from the American Institute of Cancer Research, less than half of the population is aware of cancer risk factors. As adolescents and young adults, or AYAs, we had been considered the lost tribe in the fields of oncology and palliative medicine, where AYAs are too old to be within the realm of pediatric oncology and palliative care. With these opportunities for further improvement, our study aimed to describe the younger generation's perception of cancer, as well as their awareness of signs, symptoms, and risks of cancer. We sought to describe their preferences in learning about cancer as well. At the same time, this is a hybrid activity. We also wanted to inform the study participants about important cancer knowledge. At our high school in California, we have close to 1,200 students. We conducted our hybrid cross-sectional survey and cancer informational campaign in 2025. We were able to secure approval from our school's research review board, and we obtained student-informed consent and parental assent as needed. Using a web-based electronic data collection tool, the survey was shared via email and QR code. We collected the participants' demographic data, answers to questions regarding their cancer knowledge, attitudes towards prevention, preferences for cancer education tools, and behaviors in seeking clinical help. The estimated time to complete the activity was about 5 minutes. The digital survey was designed for participants not to go back and edit their responses. We used descriptive statistics and non-parametric tests in analyzing the data. And if I can share, here is the actual survey the students responded to. Student consent and parental assent were obtained as needed. Students provided demographic data, such as grade level and ethnicity. The survey assessed if respondents knew someone with cancer and who it is. It also assessed, for example, students' confidence levels of recognizing cancer signs and symptoms. We recorded their surprise level at a cancer statistic. Information on the number of cancer types and number of people with cancer was provided. Participants then identified which of the given signs and symptoms they believed are associated with cancer, including persistent fatigue, breathlessness, and hair loss. They were then informed of which ones are actually cancer signs and symptoms.
Next, the respondents identified which of the given risk factors they believe are associated with cancer, such as poor physical activity, alcohol consumption, and frequent common cold. They were then informed of which ones are actually cancer risk factors and of actions they can take now to reduce their cancer risks. Students answered when they would seek medical help if they believed to have a sign or symptom of cancer. They were informed of the most common cancers. Students reported where they would first seek help and learned when and how to make an appointment with their doctor. Perceived barriers in seeking help, such as being too busy, were recorded. They learned about lung cancer and answered how much information they'd like if suspected to have cancer. Students were informed of different cancer treatments. They selected their preferred methods of learning about cancer, such as online videos and talking to people with cancer. After submitting their responses, participants were provided with resources geared towards young adults to learn more about cancer.
And with our survey, we obtained 306 participants. This was actually 3 times our expected sample size. The participants were then grouped by their biological sex, age, younger or older, ethnicity, and self-reported socioeconomic level using their perceived family income level. The participants reported their responses on a scale of 1 to 5. For example, they were asked about their confidence level in recognizing cancer signs and symptoms. 18% strongly agreed that they were confident that they could. Here are the most commonly identified signs and symptoms of cancer according to the participants. They included fatigue, a non-healing wound, loss of appetite, and changes in bladder-bowel habits. I like to highlight that only 15% of respondents would recognize that a change in the appearance of a mole is a sign of cancer, and that 68% did not consider hematuria or blood in the stool as cancer signs. Also, about 11% considered hair loss as a sign of cancer. I'm so glad to report that the vast majority of the participants correctly identified the following cancer risks. But on the other hand, it appears that there are opportunities for further education. 30% considered having multiple birthmarks as a risk for cancer, and being in close contact with cancer patients is a risk factor, according to about 20% of the participants. We asked students what they consider as barriers in seeking medical help if they are concerned about having cancer signs and symptoms. The most common reason was uncertainty if the signs and symptoms they were experiencing were concerning enough. They also do not feel confident in talking about cancer signs and are apprehensive about what the clinicians may find. They feel that they are too busy and have other responsibilities to attend to. Being embarrassed is a factor, and that doctors might not take them seriously. Affordability of medical appointments is an issue, and so is scheduling and going to medical appointments as young individuals. Some are worried about the appointments being uncomfortable and that they may be just wasting the doctor's time by seeing them. Despite the aforementioned perceived barriers in seeking medical help, the participants would indeed seek consultations and examinations from clinicians and doctors. They would talk to their parents about their signs and symptoms. And only 9% would ask Dr. Google. When it comes to cancer awareness and prevention education, the participants gravitated towards educational websites and videos, and also video games. In this day and age, interestingly, the participants still desire in-person instructor-based lectures, and they wanted information by talking to patients with cancer. When with signs and symptoms of cancer, 45% would desire to seek help or answers within 2 days, 24% within 3 days, so the majority would seek medical help within 1 week. And once cancer is suspected, 63% of the young participants would desire all the information. 22% would like the big picture scenario, but not too detailed. 10% did not want to hear the bad news. And 5% would desire their family members to know, but not themselves. We then analyzed the differences in how the several participant groups responded to the survey. The girls were statistically more surprised than the boys in learning that 1 out of 285 individuals would develop cancer before the age of 20. Also, the female participants statistically think of cancer more than the male participants. The older participants belonging to the higher grade levels think less of cancer compared to the younger individuals. Our study did not find any statistical difference regarding cancer awareness and prevention between the lower socioeconomic class versus the high-income class. The concern and non-concern for cancer were similar between the two groups. And among the different ethnicities of the participants, there were no statistical differences among the groups. There was no singular ethnicity that thinks the most or the least about cancer awareness and prevention. Our study found that a statistical significance of cancer awareness among participants who themselves know someone with cancer. When it comes to confidence in recognizing cancer signs and symptoms, there were no differences between the male and the female participants, the older or younger groups, and among ethnicities. There were no differences between the higher and lower income groups, or if they knew or not knew a person with cancer, in the level of confidence of recognizing symptoms and signs of cancer. And among participant groups, male versus female, younger versus older, among the different ethnicities and socioeconomic status, there were no statistical significances in their confidence of knowing how they can lower their cancer risks. Our study found that the older participants were more confident in speaking to their clinicians about their questions or concerns regarding cancer. I'm honored to have the opportunity to share our hybrid activity of a cancer awareness survey and informational campaign and its findings. Our data was gathered directly from AYAs rather than from parents or adults answering on their behalf. We were able to find that among the participants that they had high levels of recognizing most key cancer signs, symptoms, and risk factors. However, our findings suggest that us younger generations need more education in learning the lesser known signs, symptoms, and risks of cancer. For example, there are prevalent misconceptions, such as hair loss being associated with cancer. More likely, they attribute the hair loss to cancer rather than to a side effect of chemotherapy. Also, there must be improvement in knowledge that cancer is not transmittable by close contact. We must sustain awareness throughout age levels, even as teens become busier as they grow older. It is important to note that participants who know patients with cancer have heightened awareness of cancer itself. Also, AYAs prefer digital, interactive resources, and it is reassuring to know that they still value face-to-face conversations. That is why we believe that cancer patients and their families are a rich resource for information about cancer. Our effort for further education must cater to all genders, ages, levels of society, and all races. Our findings support that efforts should especially engage the male population. Again, it's important to highlight that sustained awareness and education should continue throughout all age levels. Our team proposes that our oncology communities should provide digital, interactive resources for AYAs, and at the same time, facilitate conversations between cancer patients and adolescents. Here are the references for our abstract. And we extend our gratitude to our fellow students, our parents, our teachers and leaders, and to our IRB board. Mrs. Powers, our principal, Dr. Iliff, Ms. McClellan, and our president, Dr. Perry, thank you so much for your support. And thank you so much for listening to us. I'm optimistic that you will continue listening to teams like us in promoting our cancer awareness, prevention, research, and treatments. Also, we hope to inspire our younger generations to become more involved in the medical sciences, especially in oncology, as these fields continue evolving. We encourage them to be curious, to be engaged in education and in scientific research, and to become leaders in the medical world. Thank you very much.